So, we've actually had a very difficult relationship with money because we've been a poor country. And when you're very poor, and for us who were growing up in the 70s and 80s, it didn't look as if things would ever get better. So you take a high moral ground of saying, you know what, money is actually quite bad. Only the corrupt people have money, or the only way to get rich is to do something wrong. I mean, that was typically the 70s, 60s, 70s thought. It was a poor country response, and nothing showcases the relationship with money better than Bollywood. So here is this 50s, 60s Mother India movie, and the evil person is this money lender. I mean, he's this lecherous guy who will use his money power to get what he wants. Like, so money was really bad. The poor people were completely controlled by evil people like this money lender. Now, move on to the 70s. What has happened? You've got Amitabh Bachchan in Diwar, and the bad guy is now a smuggler. So the badness has changed from this rural setting to this urban setting, and the bad guy is now a smuggler. He's smuggling gold, he's smuggling whatever drugs. By the 80s, we see that the bad guys are the corporations. Kala Patthar, again, Amitabh Bachchan. It's a classic. If you haven't seen it, I advise you to see both the movies. Fantastic films. Now, this is the, the years of nationalization. Coal mines had got nationalized. Already the poor, they are better educated, they're better dressed, they have a better grip on their rights. And the evil guy now is the corporate. This is really the late 70s and 80s. And then something happens. 91 liberalization happened. It takes a full decade for that fruits of that liberalization to kick in. And somewhere around 2000, somewhere where a lot of you were born, it stopped being bad. This money stopped being bad around that time. And a movie which sort of mapped that was Dil Chahta Hai, where the backdrop of wealth was taken for granted, and a woman could drink a glass of wine without being bad. So a whole lot of cultural shifts happened with money, but it was still money was still part of a privileged few, and the subtexts were always there. And then comes this gully boy, where money is an aspiration. It's not a bad thing to go after money. The hero wants to make it big, not because he's got a marriageable sister, aged sister, or he's got an ailing mother. He wants to do it for himself. So there is a whole shift in the way that our relationship with money has gone through many, many changes. But when it comes to investing, we are still doing what our fathers and grandfathers did. Even this generation, to a large extent, will just simply follow the footsteps of what their parents and grandparents did in terms of their preference for real estate, gold, insurance as investment. So a lot of things have changed, but this part, the relationship with money has changed, but the products have remained very much old. What I will do right now is give you 5 rules of money. Okay, so we have 5 rules right now. And the first, those of you who have read the book will understand that the biggest problem that a lot of us face is that we don't know how to separate out our savings from our spending money. So a very simple hack is to remove from your account, from the bank account that you have, money that you want to save. All of you will get into jobs. All of you will start earning either next year or a few years down the line. And a very simple way to trick yourself into separating your money is to maintain 3 bank accounts. I call it the 3 account system. There's one account, which I call the income account. All of your inflows flow into this one account. It's usually the salary account. You know pretty much how much you're spending every month. If you don't know, you will get to know how much you're spending every month. As soon as the salary hits your account, suppose it's 50,000 rupees, you're immediately moving about 35,000 to your second account, and I call it my spend it account. And the rest of the money moves to the third account, and I call it the invest it account. Now, we are not trying to invest any money. We are just getting into the habit of separating these two pots of money, which is spending money and saving money. A lot of the problem happens because people say, I really don't know how much I'm spending. I don't know where my money goes. I wish I had a system by which I could control my spending. Here is a simple system. You simply don't allow more than what you want to spend to sit in the account from which you will do all your spending. And also, once you label these accounts, it's very difficult to then use the money in the invested account to go for a binge shopping or to buy a gadget or go for a holiday. Because those of you who are reading economics will know that behavioral economics tells us that labeling is a very strong way to uh, give ourselves messaging about what the purpose of something is. So once you have named your account, income account, spend it account, and invested account, you will find it very difficult to rate the invested account and then for spending purposes. Now, we don't do anything much initially. We are not in a hurry to invest the money in the invested account. What we are trying to do is build a money habit. So I recommend that for the first 6 months, you play around with this system. See how much money you need to spend. If your spending is larger than your income, clearly there's something wrong. After your PF is cut, if at an entry level you're doing just about another 10%, you're doing extremely well because your incomes are small, expenditures will be large, you may have education loans. So on top of the PF cut, if you're managing to do another 10%, you're doing extremely well. Right? All that we're doing right now is we are allowing these uh, corpuses to build in the invested account. We will start investing at a later date. Right now, we are just doing the money habit. Now, a lot of the conversation on finance starts with retirement planning. And I think it's completely the wrong way to approach it because retirement planning is far away and our needs are here and now. Retirement planning is important, but I would put it maybe as the fourth or the fifth or the sixth product that I think about. The first, absolutely first product that you need to have is something I call an emergency fund. This is the money that you have in an easy to access place like either a bank deposit, fixed deposit, or if you understand mutual funds and you have a good planner who you hire once you start earning more, then debt funds of a certain category also are very useful products, but you need to really know the debt funds before you actually use them. A simple fixed deposit also works in a large scheduled commercial bank. I call them banks which are too big to fail. Right? So don't go for the smaller, tinier banks or the cooperative banks. Keep your emergency fund in a large private sector or PSU bank. And this is money you need between 6 months to 2 years. So as you age, it's far away for you, but by the time you're in your 50s, you'll need at least 2 years of money. But a starting account opening is a target of 6 months of monthly spend. If you're spending 25,000 in a month times 6 is the corpus that you need in your emergency fund. Why would you need this money? You people get fired. There could be a medical emergency for which you don't have insurance cover. There could be many other instances where you need money to live for a while without having a job. It could just be a toxic boss that you're trying to escape from. So workplaces can get very toxic. And if it comes to a point where you're really your back is against the wall, this 6 months of living money, which includes your rent or EMI, whatever, 6 months of cost as a stash gives you that little bit of jumping board to take a breather and then decide what to do. So minimum 6 months, you can go up to 2 years. That's your second rule. So you've separated spending from saving. You are building your emergency fund as your first product. And this, I cannot emphasize this rule enough. Insurance is not investment. This is really that 70s thought. Ki insurance kara lo. You just buy a policy and after 20 years it'll give you something. It's a middle class habit, and it's coming from a place where there weren't that many products 30 years ago. So great product in the 60s and 70s, terrible product as an investment right now, because what is it that this product is supposed to do? It's a bundled product that they sell. So the insurance, the assets under management is 35 trillion rupees. That's 35 with 12 zeros behind that. Can you imagine how much money that is? That is what the Indian households have put into life insurance, and what 85% of this money is in products called traditional, which is money back, endowment, whole life policies. Whole life is like the worst policy ever. It never does anything for anybody. So these are policies which benefit companies and agents, but not you. And I will show you how these products are built like traps, and how almost everybody who enters the organized workforce is trapped into these completely useless products. So why do you need insurance for your life cover when you have dependents? What you need is 10 times of your annual income. What they sell you is something called a blended product, where you are getting a tiny crust of insurance. So it doesn't serve the insurance purpose, and your returns are very tiny. They are between 2 to 3 to 4%, very, very tiny average annual returns. When you do the averaging over a long term, they are really bad. So anybody who's actually stayed through these to the maturity finds out that it really wasn't worth it. Why do I call these products a trap? Because they are built like a trap. They are built so that if you change your mind, you lose your money in the first few years. Why are they sold so hard? Because there's such a fat commission sitting at the top of it. Your first year premium, 30 to 35,000 rupees on a lakh of premium goes to the agent legally. Illegally, he gets far more. But that's the incentive structure is such that the first year sale is very hard. The commission rates start to drop after the first year. So the agent wants to make that first sale. And understand why this works for the company also, but not for you. Now you've paid the first premium, and second year comes and you change your mind and you stop. Out of the first lakh, what you get back? Zero, nothing. The company keeps all the money. The insurance regulators' rules allow the company to keep the money. The agent, of course, has made his commission by selling you a 20-year product. After 1 year, you are deciding to exit, you get nothing back. You change your mind after 2 years, you've paid 2 lakh, what you get back? Zero, nothing. And this is legal. The insurance rules allow companies to do that. And what happens to this money that stays with the company? They keep it for 2 years in a special fund, and after that, they can book it as profit. So the agent has made his commission. The company is booking your lapsed money as profits after 2 years. For people who worry about market risk, here is a capital loss. Your 2 lakh is gone. And legally, there's nothing you can do because that's what the product is. It's a contract. You've signed it. Now you've done 3 years of investment. You've got 3 lakh invested. In the 4th year, you change your mind. You get back just 90,000 bucks. 5 years later, you've paid 5 premiums. You've paid 5 lakhs. You don't want to pay the 6th. You just get 2.5 lakh back. And this is all according to the rules. So it's a trap. You're being sold a long-term product where the incentives are all sitting in the first few years, and they encourage you to dump the product after 5 years and buy a new one. Now think about it. Why would they want you to buy a new one? Because there's more commission, there's better lapsed profits. And the one metric that tells us that retail investors have lost is that, remember, these are 20-year products, 15, 20-year products. If we look at a number called persistency, which is how many policies are alive 5 years after they are sold, the number is 46%. Out of 100 policies sold, more than half the policies die after 5 years. And we've seen what happens to the premium in the first 5 years. The investor gets very little back. The agent makes his commission. The company makes its profits. No wonder the persistency is less than 50%. Less than half policies survive the after 5 years. So it's a perfect trap. And uh, I mean, that it's a different policy conversation. Why regulators and Ministry of Finance has done nothing about it? That's a separate policy conversation. I don't want to get into that here, but there are reasons for that. So that's the third. The only insurance that you will buy when you start earning will be something called a term plan. Don't rush into it. Ideally, buy it around the time that you're in your early to mid 30s. You'll get it for about $8,000. You'll get a crore of cover. And once you lock into that premium, it stays the same throughout your life till the time you are 60, or you have your money to retire, and then you don't need insurance cover anymore. I do want to leave about 15 minutes for questions, so I'm going to go quickly through rule 4. Real estate is not the asset or the investment that it's made out to be. We forget to do the full costing of real estate. We look at large numbers. My 5 lakh has grown to 50 lakh, but over what period? Over 20 years. What is the CAGR? What is the average annual return? And we haven't even built costs into this. We've not looked at what the agent takes, what the maintenance is, what the building property tax is, what if there's a rent coming, what is the tax that we pay, so we don't even take the costs into account. We're just doing point to point. You have to do the math. If you want to invest in real estate, you have to do the math. A very simple formula is that you look at what is the yield of a piece of real estate, a house, a flat, whatever. If you are thinking of investing in it, this is not the house that you're living in. My advice is don't buy a house right now to live in. Leave it for another 7-8 years. The real estate market is not going anywhere. And you will know that markets are beginning to revive, which is bad news actually for the buyer. So you have to buy before they revive, but you have to look at something called the yield. This is your annual rent divided by the capital value of the property. Right? So if the annual rent is, if monthly rent is 25,000 times 12 is your annual rent divided by the price at which the property would sell today. In the large metros in the country, the yields are between 1.5% to 2%. That's it. A yield of 1.5% and 2% is okay if you're in a bull market of real estate because you're banking on capital appreciation. But it's not happening. Clearly, that real estate is overbought. The yields are very slow. You begin to get interested around a yield of about 4%. So again, old 70s thought that real estate will always go up. Anybody who has bought in the last 10 years is today sitting on a capital loss in the large metros because it just has not gone anywhere. It is not going to go anywhere in the next at least 7 to 10 years because of, again, a lot of historical reasons and the way real estate has been a sump for black money in a country which is so corrupt that all of the cash which gets generated goes into the cash component in real estate. Especially for salaried people, I find it a really bad investment. It's clunky, you need black money. Why will I convert white into black? It's a bad emergency asset because you can't sell one kitchen or a toilet, you need to sell the whole house. And once the market knows it's a distress sale, it'll beat your price down. It's not liquid. The cost to sell is very high. So real estate as an asset, you have to really think about it. Unless you have a flair for real estate, unless you have a nose for real estate, then it's a different story. For an average investor, bad idea. This is one chart I love to show. The data is a little old, but it's still relevant today. Look at this carefully. This is 1 lakh invested in 1981. So you had 1 lakh, you actually had, 4 lakhs, and you put 1 lakh in the Sensex, 30 stock market index. You put 1 lakh in a fixed deposit, SBI. You put 1 lakh, you bought gold. And then you also invested in PPF. And that's it. You just kept rolling over this 1 lakh. The 3 lines at the bottom is what you would have after how many years is that? 80, 90, to 40 years, you would have few lakhs. And if you had just held the Sensex and done nothing, we did not have products to buy the Sensex in 81. Today we do, but hypothetically, if you could have put 1 lakh in the Sensex, this data is Jan 15. So this 4.2 crore may look a bit off, but even after the crash and all, it'll still be around 3.5 crore. And this is not even a total return index. I'm not going into what a total return, but anyway, this is understating really what the return has been in the stock market. So when we think of stock markets, we think of movies like Wall Street, we think of sharpshooters, we think of people like talking, into the phone, making big deals. That's not who we are. We are not speculators. We are investors. What I want to tell you today is that it is entirely possible to build long-term wealth through the stock market by taking very structured, very calculated risk, by investing in the index and or through mutual funds. This is not a lesson for you to think that I'm recommending direct stocks. The risk is very high. You need to do too much work for that. All I'm saying is that if you have a portfolio, and the best way to do it is through a mutual fund, then the long-term returns through a stock market are better. They are better than inflation. They keep your head over water, over taxes. They do better than the other asset classes. So if you're thinking that the stock market is a place where you double your money every 2 years, that's not what it is. There is a formula to what the real estate, what long-term means. You can take shorter cuts of time, but so I'll jump right to this, where the worry that people have about the stock market is that there's volatility. And especially now, we've just been through a big market crack in March, where the market crashed 30%. There were days in which they had to stop trading because it had hit bottom circuit. But when you go back in time, you see that markets go up and down. Over the last 36 years, markets have fallen 6% in a day 19 times. But in a day, they have gone up 6% 24 times. They've fallen 4% 90 times in a day. That's a 1 day change in the Sensex value. But it's gone up 4% 92 times. The worst ever 1 day fall was a 13% 1 day fall. The best jump was a 17%. It'll be nice for you to find out when this happened. So the 13% was the Harshad Mehta scam, and 17% 1 day jump was UPA2. Surprise, surprise, it was UPA2 coming back to power. So markets go up and down. And everyone tells you that you should invest for the long term. Now, what is this long term? This is a very complicated chart, and I will need like one full class just to explain it. But all that I want you to understand here is that the first bar is a 1 year return over time. Okay, so if you, this is the best 1 year period in the last 40 years of the market. There was 1 year in which your money doubled. But there was also 1 year in which you lost half your value in that 1 year. So that's the first bar. But you go to the next bar and you see that there were 2 years in this entire 40-year period where your money grew 65%. But there were also a 2 year period in which you lost a quarter of your value of your money. Your 1 crore came down to 75 lakh. Your 1 crore went up to 1.65 crore in a 2 year period. Now the third bar is a 3 year return. So there was a 3 year period in this 40 years. And I don't know which period it is. We've done rolling returns. This is rolling returns. Whoever does eco math will understand what I'm talking about. Those who don't, that's fine. All that you need to understand, there was a 3 year period in which you did 60%, You were lucky and you got 60% return, but you were unlucky and you chose a 3-year period where you lost value. Then look at the 4-year, look at the 5, 6, 7-year return. Now you come to the 7th bar, and what you see is that there was a 7-year period, that there has been no 7-year period when this data was done that you actually lost money in the market. Your minimum return was around 3%. Your maximum was 32, 31.7%. So depending upon which 7-year period you chose, your return was either that high or at 3%. But average, if you bought the Sensex, you would have done about a 14, 15% return. Now this 7-year can go up to 8, 9, depending on the day that I start doing the numbers. Whether we are in a bull market, then you'll get a shorter period. If we are in a broken market, volatile market like today, the 7 will become 8 or 9. But the only purpose of this is that volatility is what we are afraid of when we go to the market. It is not a risk of fraud. Risk of fraud is in those multi-level marketing schemes, in those cryptocurrencies, which the ICOs, the initial coin offerings. It is in those deals which come through online mediums. These are all unregulated parts of the market. This is a regulated market. And the Indian stock market is actually one of the better regulated markets in the world. We don't have these thoughts about Indian markets at all. We tend to believe the worst about India in almost every sphere. But I mean, do some readings. The Indian markets are very efficient. The speed of transactions, the safety nets which are there for the transactions to not fail. So there is a lot of reform which has happened post the Harshad Mehta scam, and continually it has happened, which makes the Indian markets fairly deep and wide and liquid. And it allows a retail investor who doesn't want the bother of the risk and the bother of picking one stock, but through the mutual fund route, allows him or her to onboard wealth creation by simply buying and holding an index. An index fund or an exchange traded fund is nothing but a mutual fund which is picking an index and mimicking it. So whether it's the Sensex or the Nifty 50, there are mutual fund schemes, there are index funds and ETFs. Do research a little bit because they have small differences in the way that they work. This is the cheapest way to actually buy a market because there is a cost. Mutual funds are not there for charity. They of course have to make profit. So every scheme will have cost embedded into it. And this costs between 10 to 50 basis points, whereas something called a managed fund, where fund manager takes active calls, he wants to beat the benchmark and give you a higher return than the benchmark chosen, those cost much more, but 1.5 to 2%, depending on which route you get. This conversation can go on getting more and more complicated, but the only takeaway that I want you to take from this is that you will all start earning and you will have age on your side. You can take more risk with your money. It will be a real pity if you went and sank your money into a life insurance policy which does nothing for you, or into a fixed deposit which does not keep the money head over inflation and taxes. But there is a way to take structured risk through stocks, through mutual funds, in the stock market to build long-term wealth. I do encourage you to read more on this because your generation, as it steps in to the workforce, will probably be facing a lot of opportunities. Right now, we can only see the threats, but I think the mixture of AI, technology, this whole high tech is going to actually open up even more opportunities. So the fear was when computers came that people will lose jobs. The bank unions protested computerization so much for so many years, but the pie actually goes up when efficiencies are introduced through technology. So I would be extremely hopeful actually for the future, where new technologies come and take the grunge work away from us and allow us to do much more higher value added work, which actually pays far more. And then when you earn that money, I don't want you people to waste it on products that don't work for you, but work for the manufacturer and the distributor. And one way to do it, you can do it yourself through an index fund. You can go with a financial planner, because it then finally becomes a complicated story, because an average household, once you have a family and you are looking after your parents and your kids, you need about 10 to 14 financial products. So at some point, the household does need a planner, but that's later for you. I'm going to actually close right now, and I will want to take a few questions, and I will just go through the 5 rules of money. We started by saying that we've changed the way our relationship with money has been, from being sorry about money, from hiding our desire to be rich. We've come out and said, no, being rich is a good thing. We've got a new thought. But the products we use are still very 70s. I'm trying to give you a system which says that first you get a cash flow system for yourself in place. Next, you build an emergency fund. You treat insurance and real estate as assets very, very carefully. These are not your first go-to products for investment. You have to give your money an equity exposure. And I will close with this, and I'll open it up to questions. I have actually seen a lot of your comments through the form, very, very interesting. But I would ask the moderator to maybe ask a few questions. I would actually just want to take a few things that you have said. Maybe people can start writing and I can just finish my coffee.
Yes. Thank you so much, ma'am. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there from the beginning of the session. I just got connected. Okay. Unfortunately, there was an internet issue at my end. Finally, I've resolved that. And I hope that students may have got a lot to learn from your session in the beginning part of it. And I know that there are quite a few questions. So Shubham, one of our students who's here managing the technical part of it, he'll put up the questions to you one by one. Shubham, okay, if you can read the questions.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay,
Shubham. Yes, ma'am.
I will, so I actually went through all the forms. It was interesting. Thank you all very much for filling. I just want to take a couple. One was the cryptocurrency question. Okay. Sure. Now, cryptocurrencies are not an investment. It is a punt. It is something like buying a lottery ticket and gambling. It is an unregulated part of the market. Even as we speak, we don't know if it is going to be legal in India, because they are getting a bill in place which makes it illegal for a variety of reasons. There was the whole crypto boom where a few thousands became tens of lakhs. Now, these opportunities come once in a while, and it's like buying a lottery ticket. Do not think of cryptocurrencies as an investment. If there's an itch to experiment with it, if you have 100 to invest, use 5 rupees, okay, to punt and get that itch out of your system on crypto. But if you have 100 to invest, you're not investing all 100 into crypto. You're investing 5 out of your 100 just to experiment with it. And maybe if that 5 grows to a few lakhs, you would be one of the few lucky ones. But I'll put my neck out and say that 5 could also go to 0 completely. So do not treat crypto as an investment. It is just a punt. And also, again, policy. You think governments and central banks will allow the power of the currency and a medium of exchange to be hijacked by a non-government institution, agency, currency? It's not going to happen. So there will be places where we know that crypto is legal and they do use it, but it's not replacing the normal currency anytime in the near future. We will see governments, China has already begun on that path of having a sovereign cryptocurrency. It's still early days, but all I'm saying is don't waste your hard-earned money in thinking that you'll become rich quick. There is no rich quick deal. You'll have to really work for it. That 1 out of a million who happens to find a gold coin is just luck. So, I mean, just work for it. Don't look for easy money. You will only get hurt. After that lecture, now I'm ready for your questions.
Sure, ma'am. Ma'am, the first question is from Swati Kumari. She's asking, how are banks like Kotak Mahindra 811 or DBS Bank for saving or partial complete emergency fund, which gives more return on savings account? Are these banks too good to be true, or one should stick to banks like SBI, ICICI?
Okay, so it doesn't say so anywhere, and there's no regulation on it. But our experience till now in India is that the government and the RBI do not allow a scheduled commercial bank to fail for depositors. So hear my words very carefully. A scheduled commercial bank, I have not said cooperative bank. So Yes Bank was a scheduled commercial bank. Investors into the stock and the 81s. The depositors' money was frozen for a while, but they got access to the money. So a scheduled commercial bank till now has never been allowed to fail. There's always marriage. A short ICICI took over Bank of Rajasthan. Global Trust Bank was also taken over in a similar fashion. So as a depositor, if you're choosing your bank carefully, no fear for your money, but also remember the basic equation that a higher return comes with higher risk. Why is it that governments are said to have sovereign guarantee? What is the sovereign guarantee? Why are they called gilt-edged? Because governments don't default on their borrowings. They have defaulted in countries like Greece, but that's a different story. We don't see a situation in which the government is going to default on its obligations. So therefore, the interest that the government can offer will be the lowest. Everything else is higher risk. So you have to remember that higher return will always come with higher risk. Having said that, the private commercial scheduled banks, they're not in trouble at all. I mean, if you look at actually their financials, they're in a better place than PSU banks. PSU banks just have their backs with the government. The government holds up their backs. So if you look at financials, some of the private sector banks actually are better. But I would just say stay with a large private sector bank if you are going after the higher interest, which is it's a fine thing to do. But just stay with the larger banks in the pack, even in the private sector.
Ma'am, the next question is from Mr. Girish. He's asking, someone who was close to retirement and had chosen to exit his investment between January to December 2020. What does he do now?
So, Girish, I didn't know you're a student. Anyway, okay. So what should a person do if he was planning to retire on the money? So that money should actually not have been in stocks at all. You need to have, see, if I'm in my 50s and I know that my retirement is going to be in a few years, then I have to start changing my asset allocation from equity heavy to debt heavy. And depending upon how many years ahead of me I have, I would change the debt composition so much that I can live off the interest through either bank deposit, or if I understand debt funds, through debt funds. And the money that I don't need in the next 7 years sits in an equity. You should not actually have had money in equity if you needed it for retirement. So words like asset allocation, diversification all have meaning. And I think COVID has been it's been a good thing for everyone to understand that what will see us through any situation will be a diversified portfolio. Now, risk comes in many ways. You could have just kept currencies, but there was demonetization. You can put it in a bank, but we've had bank failures. Debt funds have frozen, some of them. You've had liquidity issues in the debt fund market. Equity markets have cracked. Gold right now is in a bull run, but last few years the returns were pathetic. So if you chase last year's winner, you will always lose. The idea actually is have to a diversified portfolio which reflects your age and stage. So if you are indeed exiting at the end of the year, then I would just say that secure your living money first. And if there is a loss, then there is a loss. But the money that you don't need, allow that to please stay in equity, because we are not going back to hunting gathering. It'll get over. COVID will go away finally. It'll take its toll. But economy will revive. Markets will go back up again. So unless you really have to, I would suggest if you can hold on, please do hold on.
Yes, ma'am. The next question is from Kaustubh Das. He's asking, ma'am, recently we have seen RBI slash repo rates as well as reverse repo rates, but that's not being reflected when it comes to borrowing. Why do you think this is happening?
It's actually the sins of the past which are catching up, because the banks have become risk averse. They don't want to lend, fearing uh, cases, fearing the agencies coming after them for lending decisions which are not based on merit. So the entire NPA problem, the non-performing asset problem that we are sitting on today, is because either bank took wrong calls, or due to crony capitalism, they used public and taxpayer money to fund political friends of the government, who then siphoned the money off into hundreds of shell accounts and then quickly exited the country. Some of them we're trying to get them back right now. But we've seen in story after story, that is how the playbook was. Especially in the UPA 2, that really was the playbook. You have to just look at the quantum of loans in those 5 years through the public sector banks, and you understand what has happened. So the entire system is in shock. The bankers don't want to go to jail. They are risk averse. They would rather just sit on the money. So whereas it's very easy to blame one part of the market to say, oh, banks don't want to take risk. But yeah, I don't want to go to jail either. I mean, I would also be risk averse if there was going to be an inquiry on my purely business decisions. So we are in a stalemate. Nobody knows how to get out of it. One of the ways out, which has been suggested, is that the government create a bad bank, which means you take all the NPAs, you put it into that bank, the government takes the risk, and the banks can start lending again. And there's a grand bargain that what has happened, and now the lending will be purely on merit. And if it is found that there is crony capitalism, then all hell breaks loose. So we will have to have some sort of a grand bargain which says that, that kind of corruption will not be tolerated. But that was the system. There was no other way to function. But that is over. And how do you move? So if you see, we are transiting from a $2 trillion economy to an aspiring 10 trillion one. So the rules which had worked in a smaller setup of phone banking, of calling up, of all of that, it's sort of broken now. You will have to have the rule book will have to be followed if we do want to move to the next level. So we are just in transition, and it is a very scary time for everyone, because we don't know what the new playbook is. We knew the old playbook. Everybody knew how that system worked. It just took connections and money and bribes and all that. That is how it worked. This new system is unclear because the habits of the old are still very deeply entrenched. But the new playbook is not that clear. So I would answer your borrowing, why banks are not lending question, as a more nuanced answer, that we don't have a new playbook. And it is really up to the government to give this new playbook very clearly, which it has not done till now. So the communication is confusing. It's a little haphazard. Ministry of Finance it doesn't look to be uh, in a place where it's inspiring confidence, especially in the financial sector. So these things have to get worked out, and they will. And then the lending will begin again. But at the moment, we are in a stalemate.
Right, ma'am. The next question that we have is again from Kostur. He's asking, ma'am, do you think gold is a good investment option?
Do you think bread is good? Do you think rice is good? Do you think vegetables are good? Do you think meat is good? So everything is good in the sense that you need a little bit of everything. This is an example I love to give, that when you eat a meal, you need everything. You need protein, you need carbohydrate, you need fats, you need taste kickers like pickle or sauces. You have to look at investments similarly. Every asset class has a role. What we call debt, which is fixed return, which is fixed deposits, PF, PPF, to a certain extent, debt funds, but it has more risk. But this is really the debt part of your portfolio. This gives you stability and consistent return. It doesn't build your muscle. This is like your carb. And then you have the proteins, which is equity, which builds your muscle, which takes you forward. So you need mix of equity and debt. And gold is your inflation hedge. It gives you liquidity, and it's a hedge against inflation. You can't just have gold. You can't just have equity. You can't just have debt. You need a mix of all three. So typically in a portfolio, you need about 10% of the total portfolio. If you have a crore of your net worth is 1 crore of financial assets, then 10 lakh will be in gold. And how you hold gold is a separate conversation. You don't buy jewelry. You buy either the government's bonds, or through ETFs, you invest into gold. But please don't chase last year's winner with all your money. Gold has done very well this year, but if you looked at the returns last year, it was bad. So if you chase last month's winner, you will always lose. So gold is about 10% of your portfolio. Short answer.
Siddharth sir, how much time do we have exactly?
I think we have
10 minutes more, if possible.
10 minutes more. Yeah, 10 minutes more.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I don't know whether you had put some light on share market and share investment. I don't know how much of that is feasible. I wanted you to just throw some light in case you haven't spoken on it, because I missed the first part of your talk. So if there is anything that you can talk about that, how viable is that option unless or until you have a broader outlook towards share market?
Yes, I did talk about the stock market equity. I like to call the asset class equity.
Right.
And so I've spoken about it, saying that everybody needs an equity exposure. If you, for most retail investors, directly buying individual stocks is not a good idea, because the kind of work and the kind of upkeep that you need normally is not part of everyday life of a person who has a job, has a family. And also the portfolio is exposed to too much risk, because as a retail investor, you may have 2, 3, 5, 10 stocks, but the probability of, out of 10 stocks, 2 stocks doing really badly, pulling your entire value down is very high. But if you buy a basket of stocks, and the best example that I've given is that an index fund is the lowest risk route to getting market return. So you can choose your index. You can have a broad market index like the Nifty 50. You can have half of your money in that, a quarter of your money in a mid cap index fund, and a quarter of your money in a small cap index fund. That is really the way to start investing. And once you understand the products and you want managed funds, then you start taking a call on which managed funds, because the idea is then to beat the benchmark. And for that, you pay a higher price. So everybody needs equity in their portfolio, especially people who have 30 to 40 years of earning and investing ahead. you must absolutely start investing in equity now as you get your first job, even if it is just 5,000 bucks a month. 20 years later, you will remember this and you will remember what I said, because unless India stalls and stops growing, the stock market will continue to reflect a growth economy. So equity absolutely has to be there, but in proportion to your risk capacity, your risk appetite, and how much time you have ahead of you when you don't need this money. You need at least 7 years ahead when you don't need this part of the money. So it's a good idea to break up your investments into money that I will need next week, next year, 3 years later. I don't need it for 10 years. That I don't need for 10 years is money which goes into equity.
Right. Well,
Right.
I think with this we can probably end the session, and it was really in depth to hear from you, ma'am, in knowledgeable, and the entire session has been really fruitful for our students and also our faculties who have joined in for this session, and everyone else who have joined outside of Amity who have been part of this session. I hope that someday we join in our university as well to have you one-on-one in interacting with our students, and hope to have more of conversations, especially at a time where money investment is a critical part of individual lives, not only teenagers but also people in their work professions and in different parts of their life. They need to have an understanding of detailed part of investment and how to go about investing money. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was really privilege to have you for our session.
Thank you so much. And there is one small request.
Yes,
Uh,
ma'am.
we will be sending out a form. I know you people hate taking surveys, but just so that I understand better what what you would like to understand more after you've heard this, it just helps me to address your questions better. Because remember, I am part of a generation far, far away from you people, so I probably don't even understand your concerns very well. So please do, if you can spare 5 minutes, do take that survey. It will actually help other
Surely,
students
surely,
out.
ma'am. In fact, I'll be sharing so ma'am has shared a survey link with us as she had shared in the beginning of the session, which was circulated with all the participants. So the same kind of form in a different format and different questions will be shared with all of you. And I hope all of you can just fill it up and share with us. So Kaustubh and Nishant and Shubham will be sharing their email IDs. You can revert back to them, and then we'll process it and share it back with ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am,
Thank
once
you.
again. And we
Everyone.
look forward to having you in our campus someday
Yeah,
and having a much detailed discussion on
absolutely.
different other aspects of money investment.
I'm
Thank you.
happy to do that. Just
Thank you,
stay
ma'am.
safe. COVID is not over. We have another
Absolutely.
few months to get through. So please, everybody, take precautions. Okay?
Absolutely. Thank you, ma'am.
Right. Bye.
Bye.